the dice. They're meant to be. The only one for T is D, and D is D. So happy together. I can't see T loving nobody but D for all its life. When D's with T, baby, the skies will be blue for all our lives. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my little sing-along. It's Rebecca Robbins from Mind ShaperSLP, and I'm bringing you our latest pair of sound buddies that are so happy together, and it's T and D. So that's my little cute way of telling you all about how these two sounds go together. And if you didn't learn all about what sound buddies are in part 2 of my sound series, when we learned all about B and P, B and P, but really B and P, I'll review it really quickly for you, but you can always go back to watch that video too. Just scroll down my page to see it. So I call them sound buddies, but if you want to get real speech nerdy with me, the actual word is called cognates. And cognates, or sound buddies, as we call them in Nonverbal No More and over here in Mind ShaperSLP world, are pairs of sounds that only differ because one uses the voice and the other one does not. Everything else about them in terms of how they are produced in the mouth is exactly the same. So the only difference between T and D is that, or I should say T and D, is that D is voiced and T is not. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the hand cues that I use for these sounds. And just like our sound N that we learned all about last week, T and D are also made on that hard ridge right behind our upper teeth called the alveolar ridge. And it's our tongue touches up there to make those sounds. And so T sounds like, it looks like this. T, 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 t. So if you did watch part 2 of my sound series, you'll know that in my hand cue system, we indicate when a sound is voiceless by using only one finger in the cue, and when it's voiced by using 2 fingers in the cue. So T, or T, is the voiceless counterpart, or sound buddy, T, T, T. And we just kind of tap right here, right around, right above our mouth there for T, T, T. And then D is the same location, but we're going to use 2 fingers. D, D, D. So if you go ahead and practice those sounds on yourself, I'll bet you'll feel that your tongue is doing the same thing, your mouth is held in the same position, but one, your voice is vibrating, and the other one, it is not. So D, it's vibrating, and T, it is not. So these are sound buddies, and these 2 sounds also bring us to the last 2 sounds in my Early Developing Consonant Sounds. So in my Nonverbal No More program, I've divided the consonant sounds into 3 categories. We have the Early Developing Consonant Sounds, the Later Developing Consonant Sounds, and then the Advanced Consonant Sounds. And these are grouped based on the order that they are acquired in typical speech development. So any child learning how to talk, these are the order of sounds, the difficulty of sounds as they learn to say them. So T and D, there's 8 early developing consonant sounds, and these are the last 2 that we had to cover so far. So that means that if you've been following along and you've been learning these cues all along, you now have a whole arsenal of sounds that you know how to teach to your child. And hundreds of words become available with just these 8 consonant sounds and 5 vowels. And we covered the vowels in video 1. And what's also great about these early developing consonant sounds is once we can get our kids saying the bulk of these sounds, which they are B, P, W, M, H, N, T, and D. I hope I didn't forget any. I don't think I did. those sounds can also be used to substitute other sounds. So for instance, the word cookie. If your child can't say the k sound yet, but they can say the t sound, we can replace the k with t, because that's what kids do in typical speech development anyways. It's a process called fronting. So we could teach our child that can only say the t sound and hasn't been able to say k yet to say tutti for cookie, and that is a totally awesome and appropriate approximation for that later sound. So all of the later sounds can be made more simplified into approximations using these early developing consonant sounds. So again, our sound buddies t and d are the topic of our video today. And I've just shown you how to cue them, and I've explained why they are sound buddies. So now I'm going to give you some tips as to how you can help your child be able to say these sounds if they're having a hard time being able to say them at all, even in isolation. So you can use a lot of the same tricks that I taught you when we were talking about how to cue your child for the n sound. And if your child has the n sound, that is a good segue into the d sound. I actually taught one of my students who could say the n sound to say d by starting with the n, because the tongue is in the same position. So anytime you can get the mouth in the position it needs to be in to make the sound, you're going to set your child up for success, and it's going to be much easier for him or her to motor plan how to say that sound. So let's say that your child is having a hard time with d, but they can say n. Okay? So what you can try is you say n, d, n, d, n, d, and see if you can get that consistently, that they can get to the d at the end of the n, and then you slowly fade out the beginning part of the n to see if they can get just the d in isolation. So that's one strategy. You can also do similar tricks like we talked about last week, like using a dum-dum lollipop where you tickle the tip of the tongue, and then you tickle here the alveolar ridge, so that your child can match the flavors to get the tongue in the right position for t or duh. You could even try maybe putting a little bit of like peanut butter or something that might, it doesn't necessarily have to be peanut butter, just something that would kind of stay on that spot in the mouth for a little bit so that your child can get that tongue up there, and while you're cueing him or her to say t, 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 or d, 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 because that flavor and also the sensation of having something on the alveolar ridge is going to help the child know where to put the tongue. It's going to help the brain motor plan where to put the tongue, which is going to help our kids who have a hard time learning how to control their mouths to produce speech. So those are a couple of tricks. If your child is averse to flavors, you could always just try a little toothbrush and give a little tickle to up there. Right here, get a little tickle, and then they have that residual feeling of that tickle from the toothbrush that they know that the tongue knows where to go to. And it almost becomes like a reflexive response. Like if you have a tickle in your mouth, you're kind of like instinctually want to touch it with your tongue. So we're using these things to our advantage to help our child. And remember, I'm going to say it again, I say it every week, we perform these cues on ourselves and your child imitates it. And then the benefit of that is it becomes a self-cueing strategy for your child when he or she is out in everyday life and needs to say one of these sounds. They always have their hand with them and they can use the cues on themselves to help them. Some activities that you might want to try to encourage the t or d sound Could be anything where you build something up and crash it down. You can have your child say duh, duh for down is a good one. I just thought of a really fun activity. I haven't tried it with a kid yet, but I think they might really like it. If you say, let's play the dynamite game, and then you kind of just go t, 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 boom, and then they can use the t, t, t sound to request. Or if you're doing, you could even like, I know our kids love physicality and anything that really wakes up their sensory system. So maybe if you're game, you can toss your child onto the bed or onto the couch, and while you're doing the t, t, t sound, they're in your arms, and then you toss them on the boom, and they might think that's really fun, and they can say t, t, t to request. And I'm just realizing that I didn't tell you the little nicknames. I'm showing you the picture cues that we use in Nonverbal No More for these sounds, because I did my little song and dance routine with them in the beginning. If you missed it, go check it out. But the t is the ticking sound because it sounds like a ticking clock. T, t, t. And the d is the dripping sound because it kind of sounds like a dripping faucet. D, 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 d. So there you go. There's the nicknames for the t and the d sound. And also some activities that you can go ahead and try out with your child today. So that brings us to the end of our early developing consonant sounds. Next week, we're going to start going into our later developing consonant sounds. And in those videos, I'm going to tell you which of these early developing sounds you can use to substitute them. So like I just said in this video, that if your child wants to say a k word like cookie, but they can't say K yet, or the k sound, we're going to teach them to say t, t, if that is something that's accessible to them and it's in their ability to say. So we're going to cover that in the later developing sounds. We got a lot more fun videos coming your way. Enrollment is opening very soon for Nonverbal No More. I'm super excited, and the best way to find out details for that is to get on my mailing list. So please, you can sign up for my mailing list at bit.ly/emailmeslp. That's bit.ly/emailmeslp. And that's it for today, and I'm going to dance off as I leave you. Thanks for joining, guys. Only one for T is T and D is T. So happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life.